as they seem, are not the results of mass hysteria. The wave of murder which is sweeping the eastern third of the nation is being committed by creatures who feast upon the flesh of their victims. I think we have some late word of just arriving, and I'll interrupt to bring this to you. In a report from National Civil Defense Headquarters in Washington, it has been established that persons who have recently died have been returning to life and committing acts of murder.
Welcome to 75 Vintage On Demand.
Welcome to 75 Vintage On Demand, where we look beyond the plot to uncover the psychology, behavior, and hidden messages behind the movies we love. If this is your first time here, I'm Vintage. Welcome. If you've been here before, welcome back. Much appreciated. And if you enjoy thoughtful movie analysis that challenge the way you see familiar films, you're in the right place. This is part 2 of last week's discussion on George Romero's 1968 Night of the Living Dead. If you missed part 1, the first Black horror hero, it will be linked in the upper corner of this video. Now, without further ado, let's get into it.
I know you're afraid. I'm afraid too.
There's going to be 20, 30, maybe 100 of those things. And as soon as they know we're here, this place is going to be crawling with them.
Let's talk about the farmhouse as a behavioral pressure cooker. This is where I think Night of the Living Dead becomes much more than a zombie movie, because everyone inside that farmhouse represents a recognizable human response to extreme stress. Not everyone becomes brave, not everyone becomes rational, and not everyone reacts to fear the same way. Let's start with Barbara. Barbara is what happens when fear becomes paralysis. Barbara experiences something horrific almost immediately. Her brother is attacked. She's chased. She barely escapes. And by the time Ben finds her, she's physically inside the farmhouse. But psychologically, Barbara is somewhere else. She becomes withdrawn, disoriented, nearly catatonic. And I've heard people criticize Barbara for being useless. But from a behavioral perspective, her responses make sense. We talk about fight or flight response all the time, but there's another response: freeze. Barbara freezes. She isn't processing danger the way Ben is because she's overwhelmed by it. Ben responds to fear with action. Barbara responds to fear by shutting down. Same danger, completely different behavior, and that's very human. Harry, on the other hand, is fear disguised as control. Harry's reaction is different. Harry doesn't shut down. He tries to control everything: the environment, the plan, his family, the other survivors, and especially Ben. And the more control Harry loses, the more combative he becomes. That's what makes his character so frustrating, because some of his concerns aren't reasonable. The cellar does offer protection, but Harry's inability to collaborate turns a potentially useful idea into another source of danger. He would rather oppose Ben than work with him, and that distinction becomes deadly. Sometimes in a crisis, the biggest threat isn't disagreement, it's ego. Helen recognizes something Harry doesn't. Their biggest problem isn't simply what's outside. It's what's happening between the people inside. She challenges Harry, questions him, and seems increasingly exhausted by his need for control. Their marriage was clearly troubled before the zombies ever arrived. The crisis doesn't create those problems. It exposes them. And I think that's one of the smartest things the movie does. Stress doesn't always create new behavior. Sometimes it magnifies what's already there. Now let's talk about Tom and Judy. Tom is probably the closest person Ben has to an ally. He's cooperative, helpful, and willing to take risk. Judy's motivation is different. She doesn't want Tom facing danger without her. And that sounds romantic. No. Until you remember, they're trying to survive a zombie apocalypse. Her attachment to Tom influences her decision making. She goes with him during the attempt to refuel the truck, and that decision ultimately contributes to both of their deaths. The movie isn't necessarily saying love is dangerous, it's showing us that under pressure, emotion can override judgment. Sometimes we don't choose the safest option. We choose the option that keeps us closest to the person we don't want to lose. And this is where I want to hear from you. Just imagine you're in 1968 in this farmhouse. Use your imagination. Be suspended disbelief for a moment, right? If you were trapped inside that farmhouse, who do you think you'd become? Ben, the problem solver? Barbara, the person overwhelmed by fear? Harry, the person trying to control the situation? Or Helen, the realist? Or maybe Tom and Judy, the people unwilling to leave each other behind? Tell me in the comments. And if you're enjoying this analysis, hit the like button and subscribe to 75 Vintage on Demand. It helps more people find these deeper conversations about the psychology and behavior hiding inside the movies we love. Because now we need to talk about the zombies. Ironically, the zombies may be the easiest characters to understand. They're hungry. They move toward food. They don't argue. They don't debate strategy. They don't compete for leadership. They don't hold grudges. They simply respond. The humans are far more complicated. The zombies outside share one objective. The humans inside supposedly share one too: survive. Yet they repeatedly undermine one another. That's the irony at the center of the movie. The dead behave collectively. The living can't. And eventually, human conflict helps the zombies accomplish what they couldn't have done as easily on their own. Now we must talk about the house for just a moment because it serves as a miniature society. That's why I see the farmhouse as more than a setting. You have different personalities, different priorities, different ideas about leadership, different responses to danger, limited resources, incomplete information, and an external threat forcing everyone together. Theoretically, that should encourage cooperation. Instead, it exposes division. Everybody knows something terrible is happening. Nobody fully understands it, and uncertainty fills the gaps. That feels incredibly human because people don't always respond to uncertainty by saying, let's work together. Sometimes we respond by saying, my solution is the right solution. Speaking of my solution is the right solution, let's talk about Harry a little bit more. Because Romero delivers one of the movie's cruelest twists, the cellar. It was indeed the safest place. Harry was right, at least about that. Ben eventually survives the night by retreating to the very place he spent much of the movie arguing against. And I love that detail because it prevents the movie from giving us an easy answer. Ben is clearly the more capable leader, but capable leaders can still make incorrect decisions. Harry can be difficult, antagonistic, and destructive, and still be right about something. Human beings are complicated. Being right doesn't make Harry a good leader, and being wrong about the cellar doesn't suddenly make Ben incompetent. Good judgment isn't perfection. It's the ability to continue responding when circumstances change, and Ben does. He survives the night, which should mean he wins, except this is Night of the Living Dead. Morning finally arrives. The zombies are being cleared. The nightmare appears to be ending. Ben hears people outside. For the first time, help has arrived. He approaches the window. Someone sees movement. A rifle fires and Ben drops. No dramatic confrontation, no heroic death, no final speech. He's simply gone. The man who survived everything inside that farmhouse is mistaken for one of the dead. Then his body is dragged outside, placed with the others, and burned. And suddenly the entire movie feels different. Because whether Romero originally intended the ending as racial commentary or not, watching a black man survive a night of monsters only to be casually shot by an armed posse in 1968 carries an unavoidable cultural weight. Ben survived chaos. He survived fear. He survived other people's bad decisions. He survived the dead, but he couldn't survive being misidentified by the living. And here are my final thoughts. Who were the real monsters in this movie? Night of the Living Dead changed horror because of its zombies, but I think it endured because of its people. Ben shows us leadership under pressure. Barbara shows us paralysis after trauma. Harry shows us how fear can become control. And Helen shows us how crisis exposes existing fractures. Tom and Judy show us how attachment can influence survival decisions. And the zombies, they simply keep coming. Maybe that's why this movie still feels uncomfortable nearly 60 years later. The dead are predictable. People are not. Put ordinary human beings under enough pressure and you'll see courage, you'll see fear, leadership, denial, love, ego pop out, self-preservation, conflict definitely will ensue. And sometimes all of those things inside the same house. Ben became one of the horror cinema's earliest and most significant black heroes, not because he was fearless, but because when everything around him collapsed, he kept functioning. And perhaps that's the tragedy of Night of the Living Dead. The zombies didn't need to destroy everyone. The people inside the farmhouse were already doing part of the work for them. And the one man who managed to survive both never got the chance to walk away. And if you stay to the very end of this video, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it. Please consider liking and subscribing to 75 Vintage on Demand. I am Vintage and I will see you at the movies. Bye.